SHTF scenarios do you believe have the highest probability of happening, and not just happening over there, happening where you are? Which SHTF scenario should you actually be concerned with? Odds are you are worried about the wrong thing. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your neighbor or your family member. Team, in this video, we're going to talk about risk assessment and all things SHTF. There are multiple risk assessment matrices, whatever, that are out there. I use them in the military for planning purposes for quite some time. But what I developed was an SHTF matrix as it directly relates to risk assessment, right? And we're going to take a second look at these and look at some different, look at this and look at some different examples and see what is the actual risk. Which SHTF scenario should you actually be concerned with, right? That's what we're going to dive into this. If that's what you're into, team, you already know what to do. If you want to get your hands on a copy of this PDF, as well as all my other PDFs, join the channel, become a member, and you'll get all those things. So, risk assessment. Two big things that we have to be cognizant of. One is identifying each individual hazard, right? That's one of the steps. Identifying all of our hazards. Looking around us at the activities that we're going to partake of, in this case, life, and what are the individual hazards, right? And then you identify a severity of this hazard. In this case, we're going to be our severities will be negligible, moderate, critical, catastrophic. And we'll look at defining each one of these as well. And then the probability of that hazard actually happening, right? From, in this case, it is happening right now. It will happen, all the way down to it is unlikely to happen, right? Possible, but not probable. Once you begin to look at things logically, and with some consistency, you can start to analyze your operations. You can start to analyze how you're getting about your preparations, what you should be concerned about, finding vulnerables and weaknesses in said planning and prepping that you need to maybe shift and readjust some focus on. Because if you're worried about something that is improbable, unlikely of happening, but you're spending all of your time, all of your effort, all of your energy, and all of your money on something that is unlikely to happen. Meanwhile, there is something that may occur within a few months of happening, and you're not spending any resources on that. You're fooling yourself, and you've bought into the BS of YouTube video makers and news, whatever the hell they are. And then after we have these two things analyzed, we can kind of have a matrix here, and we will then have an overall risk assessment level for that particular hazard. So in this case, we're going to go from very low, moderate, high, and extremely high, right? Any one of those categories. And obviously, the ones that are red, we need to spend more time with these things to help reduce that risk level, right? Because it's not enough to identify the hazards and determine a risk level. We need to develop controls to reduce or to mitigate the risk or the hazards should they occur. Does that make sense? So let's dive into this. We can see again. I know I've had this matrix pulled up here a little bit for you. Catastrophic, no law or order, mass and widespread loss of life, loss of your life as a possibility. Critical, significant degradation to societal services, severe injury. Right. Moderate impact requires significant modification to planning to accomplish major functional areas. Negligible, little to no actual impact on capabilities, logistics, sustainment operations. The probability is happening right now, will happen any day, and that's predicted by not some YouTuber, but by the preponderance of actual evidence. May occur in 6 to 12 months if specific and well-known variables are met. May occur in 1 to 2 years, right? So this is going to require a little bit more multiple known and potentially some unknown variables. Cannot predict the time. It's happened in the past. It is likely to happen at some point in time in the future, right? Unlikely, it's possible, but quite frankly, it's not probable. And then where these two things meet, right? So if something's happening now and it's catastrophic, that is extremely high, right? High risk level. If something may occur in 1 to 2 years and it is critical, it's a low risk level. Just want to go play with chickens. So now let's break down into some categories of SHTF, right? I broke these down into a couple major categories. Economic. We have hyperinflation, loss of the dollar, cyber attack, stock market crash, housing collapse. Maybe your investment for your retirement has taken a hit. We have natural events, hurricanes, supervolcanoes, impact events, diseases, coronal mass ejections, earthquakes, wildfires, food shortages, global warming, blizzards, all the way down to fungus, bacterial, and parasitic events, right? Some pretty major stuff there. In general, we have some societal issues, everything from civil unrest, invasions, EMPs, civil war, martial law, nuclear activity, terrorist acts. Maybe it's a prescription drug shortage, right? Misinformation, urban migration, or some kind of issue with our energy grid. Maybe it's transportation systems. Major crimes, murders, invasion, gang. These aren't normally SHTF type scenarios that people think about, but if one of these things happens to you, it's probably a shit hit the fan moment, right? Arson, abductions, carjacking, sexual assault, property theft. So now we need to take these and we need to figure out the probability of them happening, the probability of them happening to you, and then a forecast, right? Because maybe it's not probable right now, like in my area in Northeast Georgia, for murder to happen. It is not probable at all, right? It doesn't happen very often. The forecast is unchanged. The severity of that risk, if it happened, is still critical, but the overall risk assessment based off the probability of it happening is still very low. Does that make sense? So as I look at these for my area of the major crimes, the only one that's not very low is property theft, right? Crackheads are everywhere. When it comes to societal, I kind of look at things like terror. I mean, we've had terrorist activity, down in Atlanta, some bombings, martial law. It's hard for me to see some of these things having an overall risk assessment risk level that's not very low. But when I try to, think about probability of something happening, within, especially, this is not overall now, but overall, if things happen, could they happen? Are they likely to happen in my lifetime, kids' lifetime? Natural events. Um, I think most of these are very low for my area. Um, I have some that may happen. Like Hurricane Helene came through, and that could have been catastrophic. But the likelihood of that happening is very low. I should still be cognizant of these threats, right? I should still be cognizant of the hazards, even if they are very low, right? You would be a fool to live down by a river and assume 100-year flood is never going to happen, right? You'd be a fool to do so. And then economic, right? And this is where, honestly, I see the biggest threats to me personally in our area up here in Northeast Georgia. It's not a dropping of a nuclear bomb. It is not an EMP. It is not a lot of the other stereotypical SHTF scenarios. It's going to come down more to natural events and then to economic events. These are the ones, and then where these pour out into, right? Is so then what? Then it gets into societal, right? So every one thing can have a domino effect into another major area, right? Does that make sense? So I'm sure it does. Team, what I'm looking forward to hearing from you is what SHTF scenarios do you believe have the highest probability of happening, and not just happening over there, happening where you are? What do you believe the actual risk assessment or risk level is to those hazards? And what, if anything, are you doing about it, right? If you're worried about food shortages and you are working on cultivating a small farm and you have some livestock, it's taking an active role. Now, truth be told, that it's something that we should all do anyways, because I think it's good for us to do. But you're not going to sustain yourself on a small farm. Just like, there's not enough meat in your county and in the national forests around you, if you're lucky enough to have some, to sustain life. There's not enough cows in the pastures around you to support your population, especially. And that's not saying that you have to live in a big city for that to be real. Like even here in all northeastern Georgia counties, there is not enough cattle to support the population here. Pretty crazy when you think about it. So it makes it even crazier to think that if something happened, maybe to that transportation, and we couldn't get trucks in with food, what would the impact be? And then what? And then what? And then what? And then what? And a lot of times we can get by with, if we don't think this has to be an end of the world, because there are very, very, very few scenarios where you go from life as you know it to Mad Max. But everybody thinks that it's just a flick of a switch, right? From normal life to Mad Max, right? That's not quite how that works, as far as I can tell. But there are very few of them. What is more likely to happen is normal life, SHTF, normal life, right? So as an example, normal life, we're living right now. The switch gets flipped, and because of like a Hurricane Helene, right? And that impacted, even though we were originally direct hit path, it ended up hitting obviously a little bit further east, but it still had a pretty significant impact on us, economically, logistics and sustainment operations, local grocery stores, distribution centers. We couldn't get. They had to reroute a lot of things. It took some time for everybody to respond, but eventually things got back. Normal life, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 6 months later, there's toilet paper back being restocked, right? Think of all the events that have happened that have caused an impact on your life, where you went from normal life to, oh shit. Within a short period of time, the switch goes back up to normal, right? So the question is, how long can you last with that switch being down? If you can't make it, but just a weekend, like, you probably have some work to do. So that's the other question, right? How long do you think that you should be able to actually sustain life for without a lot of outside help, right? How long can you maintain your household for? If electricity went out, if there was no water, that's a big one, right? Or some other scenario where there's no toilet paper and grocery stores were being severely impacted in order to deliver produce, medications, things of this nature. And we will keep this conversation rolling, team. Down in the comments is where all the magic happens. If you want to think about SHTF, I know this dude who wrote a field manual about it hitting the fan and some different tactics, techniques, and procedures that one could implement in order to mitigate those challenging times that we think that may be coming. So the greatest way that you can support this channel is actually purchasing a SHTF field manual through Amazon or through my website. If you want one that's a signed copy, I can get that out to you. Also, consider becoming a channel member. You'll get PDFs of everything that I have, including the SHTF field manual and partisan radio operator handbook, this SHTF risk assessment, and so much more. Team, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you hanging out this long. You're pretty freaking awesome. If you made it this far, leave a comment. I'm awesome, and I'll know exactly what that means. Team, I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked. Team, if you want to master your craft and develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date with future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.
We know you're out there! Come to my voice!